right. Wednesday's hot topic. We're just a few days away from MLS Cup final. Today's hot topic, are the Red Bulls going to win their first MLS Cup? And to help answer that question, we are happy to be welcomed by host of the long-running Seeing Red podcast, MLS original, New York soccer expert, Mr. Mark Fishkin. Welcome to Morning Football.
Thank you so much, guys. It's great to be here.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Jason. What a treat.
So long since I talked to you, Mark. Sorry.
Just 48 hours, not even, but great.
You were leaning with something. You had some grand statement about the Red Bulls and this achievement, right? You were going to say something fascinating right there, and I stepped on you.
It's all good, man. It's a very exciting and unexpected end to Red Bull seasons, which usually end with tears and heartbreak in a much earlier playoff round, as it's been since 1996. But I think Red Bull fans are over the moon about what's happened during this playoff run. And I mean, they are in a great spot coming into Saturday's final, and they're feeling, I think, really confident.
I do think it's interesting that this is sort of happening with this whole Cinderella thing around the Red Bulls. I mean, we don't have to get into the psychology of this or unpack the entire history of this club, but of course, this is the original New York franchise of Major League Soccer, right? And because you're New York, Mark, you know, that comes with all these expectations. There's sort of a glamour level. Yes, you're wearing your Metro Stars jersey. I see that there. You know, it's sort of like the weight. It's the Yankees, the Giants, the Knicks. It's all this, like, you're supposed to be good, and if you're not, it feels even bigger failure. And yet here's the team in a 7th seed going into a final, you know, years after the Red Bulls did have some of the best teams in the league during the regular season. So how does that feel as part of the story of this season?
Well, it feels great, and I think a big part of why New York has been able to get through. Yes, they were the 7th seed, and yes, they had a pretty dreadful second half of their season, but remember that they were missing their number one guy, Emil Forsberg, through almost the entire second half of the year. And with Forsberg on the field, New York is 11-3-5 this year.
Whew.
And so, you know, they started off really, really well. They were 8-3-5 earlier in the season. They were in first place in the East 6 weeks into the season. And then, you know, perhaps to the surprise of no one, after Forsberg came back from a Swedish international window with a lower leg injury, I mean, the team just kind of floundered, but they had leveraged that quick start to stay up in the home field spots till very, very late in the season. Forsberg came back late, took a few games to get going, and they've put together some fantastic defensive efforts, and here they find themselves in the final. So I know there's a lot of what has happened to New York. What happened is their best player came back healthy and really picked everything up just where he left off. In terms of your note about New York and big teams and big players, I mean, the Shield era for the club, which was 2013 to 2018, the team won the Supporter Shield 3 times. They won the East 2 more times during that stretch, and that was start off with the Henri Cahill years and move forward to the Bradley Wright Phillips and Sasha Kljestan years. And those teams always entered the playoffs with a massive, massive weight of expectation on them, especially as the calendar years went by and this OG team was one of the few left not to win MLS Cup. And this team has none of that. There is no expectation on them. This is a great ride. I recall speaking with Sasha Kljestan after the 2017 failure when they came up 1 goal short in Toronto, after taking then the best team in MLS history in the regular season to that time, to the brink. And Kljestan said, you know what, we want to be the first team to deliver for these fans so badly that if anything goes wrong, they freeze up and they tighten up and they hit the post and Bradley's shot goes in the 10th row and it all goes wrong. And this team, to their defense, they've made almost no mistakes, but they don't have any expectation on them. And that's a reason why they're successful.
On this playoff run, the Red Bulls have defeated Columbus, New York City FC, and Orlando. At which round did Red Bull fandom in general like start to believe that this was a thing to actually genuinely get excited for?
Yeah, well, it was clearly the first round matchup against Columbus, who I think most MLS watchers understood as playing the most attractive, the best soccer. With Miami's season notwithstanding, they were really a complete team. And New York went into Lower.com Field, the first game of the first round. They got the early goal, Felix Carvalho with a great grab off a corner kick, and they just defended as a team for the rest of the game. It was a long time to go, but getting that win, I think, gave everyone's eyebrows went up and said, "Oh, wait, we can play." This is a team, by the way, that beat Miami during the regular season, that swept Cincinnati during the regular season, that took LAFC. LAFC had a late goal against them to draw in LA. So this is a team that had played very well against good teams, played not so well against teams they should have beaten. But nevertheless, I think they had a ton of confidence. The game at Citi Field against NYCFC was one of the best nights for this franchise ever. The first ever Hudson playoff derby. New York was up 2-0 a half hour in, made it stand up. The City fans were quiet. The Red Bull supporters were singing loud and proud throughout the entire match. And then the Orlando match was, again, getting the first goal is so important to any team in any game. But given the Red Bulls' defensive strength, scoring first meant everything in that Eastern final. And here we are, 90 minutes away. It's crazy.
It is. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, you go for it, Jason.
No, I wanted to ask about the Ricky Puig factor. Obviously, this is a big blow for the Galaxy to lose him after the semifinal or the conference final win over Seattle. And in this kind of weird, inverse, perverse kind of way, it's like, well, that's maybe not great for the Red Bulls because while Ricky Puig is very good, Mark, his way of playing sort of plays into the Red Bull style and sort of what they want to do to win the ball back, to do the things they do on the attacking end. And with him off the field in this game, we don't know exactly how the Galaxy will handle possession and sort of who will be their focal point without Ricky.
I'm sorry, Jason, but you can't convince me that not having Ricky Puig on the field will somehow benefit LA. I mean,
Okay.
the man.
No. Not that it will benefit LA, but just that it makes it a little bit more complicated for the Red Bulls. I think.
I don't think. I mean, unless Greg Vanney decides that they're going to be a completely different team for this final, given all the attacking talent that they have. And I don't think he's going to do that. I mean, and to be clear, LA Galaxy is the favorite in this match. They should be. They're playing at home. They scored, 20 more goals than the Red Bulls did during the regular season. They still have Gabriel Peck, and they still have Paintsel, and they still have a host of offensive weapons. So just because Puig isn't in the game doesn't mean that LA won't do what LA does. I mean, for Vanney to turn this team completely on his head and play a different style of soccer, I think would be a challenge for them as much as it would be for New York.
You said, and I've heard you say before, that getting the first goal is so hugely important for this side. And through this playoff run, the Red Bulls have managed to get that first goal more often than not, or if not every time. If LA does manage to get that first goal, do the Red Bulls have that comeback ability?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. They did come back actually in the game 2 against Columbus. They conceded first at home, took a 2-1 lead in game 2 against Columbus at Red Bull Arena, and then conceded late and won that game in penalty kicks. So, I mean, I think the answer is yes, they can. It obviously doesn't help much, but remember, you've still got Lewis Morgan on this team that scored 13 times this season. You've got a Dante Van Zier who finally is showing the reason why that he was brought into this team. I mean, the goals and the play have been dictated by the DPs for most of these playoffs. And so it won't be a death knell for them, right? If LA scores in the first 10 minutes, it's not, what's on ESPN 8 the Ocho. But I think that it'll be a tougher road to climb, and New York will obviously have to come out and be a little more attacking minded, and that would be a challenge. I mean, I wouldn't favor them if they go down in the first half in this game. I think LA would be much more likely to go and get that second, but stranger things have happened. Like I said, they went down early to Columbus at home and were able to come back and get it done.
Mark, a couple players who maybe will go missing from attention, but shouldn't as a factor in a knockout game were the goalkeepers. Now, John McCarthy's been a hero in an MLS Cup final before. He's got some experience here. But Carlos Coronel is a very good goalkeeper that I think people kind of forget about in this league, and he's been massive during the playoff run. Who do you think has the edge there?
Well, John McCarthy famously stoned the Red Bulls against the Philadelphia Union in the Open Cup. That is a core negative memory for Red Bull fans seeing John McCarthy. But yeah, I mean, Carlos Coronel, his form kind of started off okay, dipped really hard in the later stages of the season, and has come back really strong. Coronel was the starting Paraguayan national team keeper for a lot of the last year and a half, and something happened, whether it was a new coach or a bad step. He lost his starting spot. And I think he's really used his time back at Red Bulls to illustrate primarily to his national team goalkeeper that the national team coach, that he is should be number one on that team. So he's been lights out over the last few games down the stretch. This team took a 5-1 home loss in a September Hudson Derby match. It was the worst home loss in the series for New York, and I'm absolutely convinced that without getting beaten so badly at home, they wouldn't be here playing for a title. It was a real wake-up call. Coronel himself had a horrible distribution that was just picked off by a City attacker and converted into the net. And since that game, he's been head and shoulders above his form for the rest of the year. So, yeah, I mean, Coronel cold stone stop of Facundo Torres in the first half at Orlando. That ball, perfect pass, shedding the defenders. Torres has the whole net. He shoots, causing Coronel to dive to his left to make the stop. And at that moment, it's like, oh no, this is happening. We're going to do this today. It was fantastic.
Mark, I wanted to ask you about this is one of those cases where, and this is pretty typical in sports, love the team, don't love the people in charge necessarily. Oliver Mintzlaff kind of famously not that long ago said MLS is developing too slowly, and they're not getting enough out of the Red Bulls as an organization. I think he name-checked Tyler Adams and said, that's it, that's all we got. What is the relationship right now between the fan base and Red Bull Global and this project? I mean, you want to win a championship, but that feels like rewarding the people who have been a little bit lax in their attention to your club for some time.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. I think New York Red Bulls fans have a hate-dislike relationship with global ownership. The summer transfer window was famously bare, other than Frankie Amaya's replacement, Felipe Carvalho, and all he's done has scored 2 of the biggest goals in the playoffs. And so what looked like a dreadful summer window has turned out to be a fantastic summer window, because look who they brought in. There's been a lot of rumored signings, a number of rumored signings, and I'd like to think, I mean, Mintzlaff's comment is not wrong in the sense that during this project, it really has been only Tyler Adams, who's, for my money, a generational talent for U.S. soccer, if he can stay healthy. But he is literally the prime and sole asset that's come out of this system. I don't think John Tolkien's on this team next year. I think he's getting the tab. He's moving up and moving out. And whether it's to Salzburg or Leipzig or whether it's somewhere else, I think he's leveled up and out of MLS. A lot of that has to do, I think, with perhaps New York's own focus on young players. I mean, look who's on the team now, and I'll make this somewhat brief, right? You've got the Nealis brothers. You've got Danny Edelman, who in my money is the next to go. You've got Peter Stroud, who played for an injured Carvalho against Orlando, did phenomenally well. You've got a young Cam Harper, who's leveled up big time this year. You've got a lot of local and academy kids that are getting meaningful minutes. So the idea that Red Bull Global hasn't seen this class of New York homegrowns develop is kind of on them, I think, at the end of the day. It's always an interesting mix. How many homegrown talents, how many young talents do you bring in and level up? You know, they made money on Caceres. They made money on Frankie and Maya. If it's just, hey, our German teams and our Austrian teams haven't seen the value enough to sign these guys, I think that's on them because New York is developing young talent.
Coming back and looking at Saturday, final kind of question here. We'll get to the big one, two-parter. Are Red Bulls going to win their first MLS Cup Saturday? And what will you personally do to celebrate if that happens?
Ooh.
So I feel really good about Saturday, and perhaps the 28 plus years of heartbreak and misery have made me ridiculously optimistic. I think New York can win this game. I think they're playing with so much confidence and belief in themselves and belief in the tactics. Sandra Schwartz, who we really haven't touched on at all during this chat, has been terrific, getting his team to play the same way, whether things are good or bad. It's just next, let's go, next ball. I think they can do it. I to get me to say they will do it, I'm recording my podcast tonight, and we'll learn what comes out of there then. I anticipate there will be a lot of crying like a baby and hugging longtime friends who have suffered from the early days in Giant Stadium, playing on a midweek in front of 4,000 fans, or the folks that were at Red Bull Arena when management decided to make us a 1 o'clock start on a Wednesday in July where it was 100 degrees. That GM was fired 3 days later when Thierry Henry said, "What the hell are we doing?" So yeah, I will be in Carson. I will be in with the supporters in the second deck. 700 supporters. I think 400 to 500 season ticket holders, and the entire Red Bulls front office will be there. I think it's going to, if it happens, it'll be the out of body experience that we've all been hoping for almost 3 decades. I had brown hair at one point watching this team.
I do. You probably have the details. I was going to look them up. Okay,
Yeah.
Here it is. This is what Tom Bogert said. Mark, you probably know.
Yes,
That
I
the
know.
front office bought 700 tickets for the supporters group for the Red Bulls to go, offering a $300 travel reimbursement to help with flight and lodging. That's pretty great. That's pretty great.
It's great, and full season ticket holders who are not members of supporters groups can go for free, can go to the game for free without the travel benefit. I mean, say what you want about the Red Bulls fans and supporters relationship with the front office, but this is a major solid, given I heard you guys talking earlier about the price of tickets to this game.
Yeah.
It's significant, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to be in the house. And that, I think, will only get more expensive as you get closer to game time. So I mean, say what you want about, boy, this FO stinks, but this is a major move by the team to do right by its most loyal fans and supporters.
Sounds like a grand weekend out and possibly a historic one. And you mentioned recording your MLS Cup final preview podcast tonight. Where can folks find that?
Yeah, we're at Seeing Red NY on just about any platform you get, including here on YouTube. And we've been doing it for 15 years. We're going to have Steve Cangelosi of MLS Season Pass on tonight, as well as Josh Gessman of Corner of the Galaxy, another OG podcaster from way back in the day, as Jason knows. And thanks for having me, guys. This is a great little show, and I look forward to it growing, and maybe we can do this again when I'm sobered up.
There you go.
Mark Fishkin, Seeing It Red podcast, possibly in tears on Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe to Morning Kick Around channel. Follow us along on social media at MKickaround on the X, Instagram, and the Blue Sky.